right, good morning. How's everyone? Good morning, good morning. Yesterday we had a big talk about more of the same, going into the RNA, how, we oxygenated through our evolution. Lots of things happen. I'm going to continue with that talk. I'd like to talk to you about who I worked with in this field. Harold Morowitz was one of my main biogenesis, evolution, origins of life. He was a very well-known scientist. He was at the Krasnow Institute. James Olds, whose father was a Nobel Prize winner and one of the most brilliant scientists I've ever met. And his team of people, we talked about Ted Dumas, Giorgio Ascoli, Barb Gibbon was there, wonderful teaching to the brains, natural learning systems. She introduced me to Jane Flynn, who became my advisor in neuroscience. Jane is a metallurgic scientist studying how zinc, copper, iron, other elements, calcium, fold into our ability to evolve, our brain to evolve. She's a neuroscientist, physicist, psychologist. And going on to Marilyn Albert and George Reebok at Johns Hopkins on aging brain health, what makes us healthy, environmental science, epidemiology, and then graduating with Gary Krebs, who is the guru of health and risk communication. And he helps me put these concepts, these more complex scientific findings and complex into simpler words so I can help you understand. So let's go at it today. And so Harold Morowitz and I were great friends. I was interested in oxygenation, asking him how oxygen folded into our evolution. And he was looking at biogenesis. And oh my gosh, I wish I had a copy of his chart that goes into details like no one else could do but Harold. And he was expert on origins of life. Origins of life. What does that mean? So, what do you think came first, plants or animals or things that breathe and move around and say plants, right? Right. Well, Harold was right on that, and that we're looking at way under the ocean, where there would be a thermal vent. You know, we all know there's volcanoes down there, and so we've got a thermal vent. It's hot. It's hot. And it's spewing air down there. We've seen those films. We know that's going on. And around those vents is heat, is light. Manganese is down here at the bottom. Manganese is the most prolific, second most prolific element on the planet, and I believe iron is the most prolific element on the planet. So what does that tell you? That tells you that, I'll tell you what it tells you. It tells you that iron and manganese, iron plus manganese equals plus oxygen and water equals our mitochondria. It's kind of the thing that moved in on us, just like COVID's moving in on our low oxygen, our reversal of our oxygen needs over millennia. We have reversed. We have mutated. We have mutated from our biologic origins and our biological needs, our physiologic needs. Oxygen primarily, we can't live 5 minutes without it. Water, we can't live 5-6 days without it. A little bit of food, we can't live 5-6 weeks. We can live a long time without food. As opposed to things like the naked mole rat that can live days, weeks without oxygen. You see what I'm saying? And it's these nocturnal animals that COVID came from. So we just need to look at the facts. This is number one in science, observation. So iron is number one on the planet. Number one available metal. Manganese is number 2, available metal. In fact, in iron ore mining, look at San Marco, in northeast Brazil, where all of the crazy COVID's moving in right now. And look at their iron ore mining. And just follow the water up to northeast Brazil from the mine, where they use manganese plus water to get iron out of the rock. That's where our steel comes from. Okay, I'll just leave it there. And look at Zika and ferritin, and tell me what you find. Ferritin versus Zika. Zika. I've never been able to get a clear, decisive answer from any scientist. How does Zika masquerade as this, is my question. Does Zika masquerade as ferritin? And that's why we find it in the embryonic tissue. Okay, just a question. Okay, so that's kind of okay. So down here at the thermal vents, let's go back down to the bottom of the ocean here, millions of years ago, 4 or 5, however many millions. I mean, ask the geologists. They count this stuff. They're great scientists. So many great scientists who spent lifetimes giving me the information that I am trying to model in looking at how and why COVID has moved in on us and what we can and should do, beginning with looking seriously at what has happened here and what this COVID's doing. So we've got this thermal vent. Let's call it a thermal vent. Because that's what Dr. Morowitz used to call it. And we have high temperature. We have light because, and we have manganese, because manganese is all down on the bottom of the ocean, right? And Lord knows there's probably iron coming out of those vents, right? So, and from that, organisms like algae. I think algae is the big culprit. Blame it on algae. Otherwise, we wouldn't even have to bother with what's going on here. It's algae's fault. Algae, apparently emerged from this, floated upwards. As you go upward, manganese, I stand to be corrected, gains or loses an electron. I'm going to say it's 1 here. And up here it's 2, and here, so things happen around these thermal vents with these elements that actually that COVID seemed to like. I don't know. It's pretty hypoxic. What's down here? What grows down at the bottom of the ocean? Weird stuff. If the stuff that grew in the bottom of the ocean came down to the planet, daggone, that would make the news. If aliens came down and looked like what was at the bottom of the ocean. Can you imagine? So we have all sorts of wild and zany life happening in this planet that we don't know about. We don't see, we don't even know about. We discover it here and there. They're bioluminescent. They have their own light sources inside of them. You know, some of them dangle little things from their head with lights on them. Pretty kooky stuff. They find new stuff all the time, especially around Australia. Okay, so this life happens down here, and it, according to Dr. Morowitz, it originated in these thermal vents, and the algae is part of that. What came first? Plants. That's where we came from. That's what we talked about earlier. And that's what I'm talking about in the algae. Let's go ahead and make it green, because that's what we think about it. Algae, you know, as it pairs with sunlight up in the corner here. I had an orange one. That's okay. It's okay. It's okay. So there's sunlight up here, and sunlight, right? So that's heat. That's heat. And heat is energy, frequency. It's free energy is what it is. And how that pairs into our eyes is a whole world that, gee, that's not my thing. But that is free energy for the eyes. We don't have to burn any energy to see in sunlight. When the free energy goes away, we burn a tremendous amount of oxygen in the rods, the black and white type shadowy stuff that we have to figure out. These are nocturnal things. We burn that. That's where we burn the oxygen, or we become echolocaic, as in bats. And when we're hearing things, again, that's free energy. All right, etc. So there's just a lot of things to consider. We're looking at a big model that helps us understand how and where COVID came from, what it's doing, what it's opportunisting. It's an opportunist on our hypoxic amygdalaic system, and what we can do about it. So okay, so algae, and here we are. We're still in the this is the lowest level where manganese is most abundant. It's blue as water. And then we get at this middle layer. So we're above the thermal vents now. The middle layer where there's diffused sunlight, holds still a lot of pressure, keeping it all compact. And so life growing in a pressurized, compact, zero gravity sounds like first trimester. And, in many ways it is first trimester. We've talked about that ad nauseum, but I'm always ready to talk about it again. It's a beautiful thing, and let's keep talking about it because there's a lot to talk about there. For instance, just quickly, we'll go into that first trimester, that try one, and it's a very thick membrane. It's a pressurized membrane. You've got a single cell that starts dividing into how many did we say? A trillion cells in a very thick membrane. That's pressure. With zinc and copper providing this explosive light. Zinc and copper together on a carbon sheet make a bright white LED light. So we cross-disciplinary to find these. Who'da thunk? I was wondering where the light came from, because here we get some light. We start to get some light, not a lot, some light and some heat in this middle area. We get some light and some heat. So there's a lot of, so we're looking at the try one. Yeah, there's pressure. There's water. There's very little oxygen. There is, I don't know, maybe it's the zinc and copper. I don't know about the zinc and copper down there. I do know that manganese holds out at the bottom, and that this may be where our, manganese, probably iron is coming out of here. The light from the fire there, that's light. It's like a sun in the middle of our planet. And so, I mean, this is maybe the origins of manganese down here, that build into algae, that algae start producing oxygen, right? Oxygen needs to be involved at some point, even with the nocturnal hypoxic animals. Even with the happy hypoxics, we have a little bit of oxygen, not much. So, I'm trying to figure this out on my own. I'm doing it, but hey, so let's get away from try one. But I'm just saying that, in first trimester embryogenesis, where we need to be anemic, low oxygen, so that all of this pressurized trillion cells can manifest and differentiate and create their own pathways. The entire brain and spinal cord, we don't get too big. It's very pressurized. All right, this is very pressurized. Let's get out of here for now. So very pressurized at the lowest levels of the ocean, where biogenesis, thank you, Dr. Morowitz, for all of your incredible work. Biogenesis likely, Genesis likely, were our origins, right? Another theory is that a comet came from outer space, right? Slammed into the earth, and there were some alien, whatever, microbes and stuff on that. There, people talk about it. We'll figure it out one day. We haven't finished. Hopefully we're not finished thinking these things through, pursuing deeper science, pursuing pioneering science. As happy hypoxics, this is all we've got. To the extent that we use it to move forward is what I've tried to, explore in the last 10 years of my learning. And I did use computers to oversample, enrich my experience, to pull in from all these sciences, pull in from trusted sources to be able to model this for you today. So let's keep going. So this is level one. Now at level 2, we have a different form of manganese. Let me get this eyeball out of the way. And we know that the sun gives us heat and free energy. And that is a very orange marker that doesn't want to erase very well. That's fine. So this is level 1. This is level 2. So what's here? It's a little bit of sunshine, just a little bit, right? A little bit of sunshine is getting through. More oxygen is diffusing down, but a little bit more. And manganese is at a different constitution, M2. And we have iron 2 as well. We have the less friendly iron that is riddling the system in COVID-19. We have let's get rid of the comet. We have the less friendly iron that is bad iron. We have the friendly iron that picks up our oxygen and delivers it to the mitochondria, then goes and gets some more, and it comes and goes with this extra electron, and this is a good one. It's friendly. It's just got somebody take my electron. Oh, there's some oxygen. You take it, and I'll bring you over to the mitochondria. Kind of gives it to the oxygen, so the oxygen will stick, and then they go to mitochondria. That's my understanding. Okay, so this is but it's very interesting, right? So you have, I believe it's manganese 1, which is not very. It decomposes. This lower thing, it decomposes and creates sediment, from my understanding. It creates sediment, maybe from decomposition. We know that. We know what a compost pile is, but manganese is involved in that decomposition, from my understanding. And manganese 2 is at this point. This is important. Manganese can split oxygen out of water. Great. So that's where algae begins, right? Now, as it gets, so great, it starts to get the oxygen it needs to give it energy to do more stuff. A cell is there, just floating around, and actually the algae is producing the oxygen. It's producing the oxygen. But manganese has the potential to split oxygen at this point, and maybe that's how it gets produced. Look at this. These are the components for mitochondria. Wow. At this point, when it rises up a little more and interacts with light, and maybe zinc and copper, other things, it produces oxygen. Wow. And up here, I believe it's the M3. I may be wrong. It's one of those, but it has 3 different forms up at the surface. This is the surface of the ocean, right? Right. Surfboards, everything else, whatever else is up here. Surfing USA. So up here is where this algae proliferates, right? Proliferates with the sun. Manganese is very friendly up here. And what does it do? It continues to split oxygen out of water for plants. That's what it does. It splits oxygen out of water for fish. That's what it does. Those fish got legs and they crawled out on land. And here we are. Fish got legs, crawled out on land, and here we are. All right. Put a happy face there. That's us. Eventually, we, evolved. And okay. So there's a couple of things that happened between them. This algae produced oxygen, so organisms started to emerge. Things that had biological machinery that all need oxygen to thrive, develop, continue to thrive, develop. I think the current consensus is that, it started with kind of nematodes. I mean, that was the thing that really had organs and started to differentiate. And of course, the fungi, the mushrooms. Wow. Lest we forget that mushrooms, we have the phylogenetic tree, we have plants, insects, a whole different world, and basically us, right? And along here are mushrooms. Us and mushrooms kind of go together because the cells that are in a mushroom are very similar to our eukaryotic cell, double lipid membrane with all of the dots and doobobs inside, including mitochondria. And mushrooms, you can drown them. They're oxygen dependent. So how exactly we're related to mushrooms is a very interesting question. That's another interesting pursuit of mine. When COVID passes, hopefully it will. We'll learn from it. One of my first observations in science, and it was fascinating, is that I was watching Valenauta. He has a series on dissections. I was working in the lab with Jane Flynn, and I was doing animal brain extractions and dissections, and I was studying techniques and what was where, and I was studying our brain, and so it's a whole series of tapes. I have them in my library. And at one point he was doing that. I'm like, and he was, examining a certain area of the brain. It was striatal. I forget exactly where it was. It was, midbrain. I was like, golly, that looks like a mushroom. You know how they fold and they flip and they peel and inside if you take them apart slowly. I was like, daggone. And then it was just 2 days later, I think, 2 or 3, it was within the same week for sure. I was walking in my area, which had a lot of mushroom activity, especially after rains, a lot of hydration, pry oxygen out of water, boom. Mushrooms would sprout up. And I saw this thing, I thought it was a soccer ball. I thought it was a ball. It's a big white round thing. And I went over and it's like, from the outside, I'm like, oh my gosh, that looks like a brain. So, I mean, that's observation. I observed that a brain looked like a mushroom, and then I observed within the same week that a big old mushroom thing on the outside looked like a brain. So when I found out that they were on the same phylogenetic tree, Us and mushrooms are a thing. That did not surprise me, because where there's causation, all you find is evidence. And we know how weird mushrooms are. Mushrooms are like weird monsters in the underground. They're strange. They come and they do weird stuff too. They're carnivorous, all sorts of weird stuff. Okay. So no surprise that we're like mushrooms. Have I lost you all yet? I hope not. Thank you for bearing with me. Okay, so insects, goodbye. You were something else. Nocturnal animals, you have mutated over here. Nocturnal animals, low oxygen, you're over here. Everything else is high oxygen over here, including mushrooms, although that wouldn't surprise me. And then plants. So, I mean, the main point of this whole thing is that, what do you think came first? Plants came first. And because plants came first, algae put out oxygen. Algae put out oxygen. Right, so the sunshine, I'm sorry to get rid of our surfer. He'll be back, I'm sure. Some sun down here, but at the surface algae level, you've got this manganese 3 that is very friendly with oxygen, right? And so algae's putting out oxygen. Well, what does algae need as it develops? What do plants need? They need carbon dioxide. And there we have this cycle of life. So these are the plants, which probably came first from the thermal vents into the algae and up to the surface where manganese is playing a part. We get sunshine too, don't we? CO2, and that's us, people. Yeah. Hi. That's us. We're so smart. Got brains. Let's see. Let's keep smiling. And so plants, there's a cycle here, right? We know that cycle. We all know that. That we breathe out carbon dioxide. And the plants give us, God help us, oxygen. Yeah, we know that cycle. Yes. And the thing is, it's very likely that algae came first because that's what oxygenated the planet. And in order for this to survive, it needed us. And so and oxygen is fuel for us. Carbon dioxide is fuel for the glucose. Now, here's where our glucose is that we need. And they put it out in abundance. And of course, there's proteins and all sorts of things that have, contributed to this. And here's where the oxygen is for plants. We give out the CO2. Yeah. I'm not sure what else we give plants except misery after industrialization and raising the planet and such. But okay, so that is, all right, so that's that. And then what have we done? Let's get rid of these lower layers because we've evolved now, right? Thank you, Dr. Morowitz. Thank you, Dr. Given, Dr. Olds, Dr. Flynn, Dr. Reebok, Dr. Albert, all of these wonderful supporters, many more. Okay, so what have we done? We had a choice a couple hundred years ago. We could go with the Jeffersonian, agrarian. This is a lifestyle we all know, living on a farm, growing our own food. Pandemic has enabled that a little bit more. Feels good, eh? Looks good. The planet has really bounced back. And then there's the Hamiltonian, from my understanding, I'm not a historian in the least, who is the, coin-based agrarian. This is plant, farm community. So we chose this one. We were here in this beautiful little cycle, and we chose this one. Well, this one has gotten us into trouble now because this one has lowered our oxygen levels, has destroyed our water supply, and it has upped our glucose to, God knows, please stop this. And what does this do? Look familiar? What does this look like? Anybody? COVID-19. COVID-19 is just a group of elements that have come together. It's like a snowflake. It's like when certain conditions, does a snowflake have a mind? No. It's just under certain conditions, this thing is going to grow, and it's getting more and more toxic because it's got a lot of this. Everything it needs is right here. Yum, 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 yum. And you know what? Back here, oh my gosh. Shoot. At least we have water back here. And lots of plants, water, and lots of oxygen. That's what got us going. And before that, who knows what was there? Gosh. So this virus is just a thing. Just like mitochondria. Remember, iron, manganese, water, and oxygen. It's just a thing. And mitochondria also hangs on to copper, metals, copper, zinc, a metal, a transition metal. Metals. This is a metals thing. This is a thief. It takes our proteins. And this stuff builds sediments, releases oxygen, creates algae. It creates things. This party creates things. This party destroys things. It's a half a nothing. And it moves in on what we have created. And I believe it is taking us back to. So. Oh, wow. So what's the answer? What's the answer here? I love this choice. We don't have to go back too far. We don't have to go back 5 million years. We just need to go back to the Jeffersonian ideal world and rethink the Hamiltonian one. Because it's caused a huge amount of stress for most people, including the ones who are those things at the ocean, they put all this junk on top of them and they're carrying around junk all the time. That's a heavy life. That's not freedom. It's not evolution. That's fear. Fear-driven. We don't need that. Nope. That's not aging brain health. Proaxia. We need to rethink stress, earth, pollution, destruction. Even you can say wars even happen from this. Fear. Fear-driven is bad. Overpopulation is fear-driven. oh, just have as many kids as we can so we can win. How would you have the kids you can manage to raise and support and to mentor properly, thoroughly, understand how environment shapes children and how the physiology enables the growth within a human lifespan. That physiology, I was riding down the Shenandoah River yesterday on the tube, and that river wasn't going any faster than it was going to go. And I couldn't really make it go any faster. I couldn't really make the tube go any faster. I finally had to just give up and just wait. It took about just over 3 hours to go 3 miles. And I just had to wait. Now that is the oxic form of evolution. Sunshine, sunshine, sunshine. Breezes. I remember the smell of those kind of briny here and there. Sometimes you could smell the mushroom, kind of the forest bottom, mushroomy kind of, sediment. That's the best way to explain it. It's mushroomy. Hear the ripples of the water. Water was very cool, very nice and cool in the hands. One point I just rolled over and I was just looking to see what I saw on the bottom. Your dragonflies came and perched every once in a while. There was one really weird looking insect that really creeped me out, and I was like, what does that thing mean? I drew it for you. No, I don't know. I think it kind of had a pointy head. It was really weird. And that was connected to the middle. Then it had this teeny tiny hair-like thing and this massive, nasty black thing on the bottom, on the back. Shiny, really shiny. And it's, had its feet and it was like kept cleaning itself back. I was like, ooh, you're really, it's kind of scary. Something like that. And it landed like on the vest, the safety vest, life jacket. And I was like, hope there are not more of you. And what do you do? What do you do with that big black thing in the back? What is that? How do you even talk to that thing? I mean, that was the busiest part of it. It was just really busy. And so, I mean, I don't know. Saw some birds, it's floating down the Shenandoah River. And what I'm telling you is that the physiology of being out in the sun, on the water, talk about buoyancy, without being able to really control anything. You can work with the current, and I did, trying to keep from going over into the, edge of the. Sometimes I wanted to go to the edge and I couldn't. It was pulling me towards the edge and I had to work hard to get out of there. So that's the Darwinism, is to, follow your instincts. And so there was a lot of evolutionary type networks that were being exercised, triggered, engaged. And for me, there was very little to fear. It's pretty much see the bottom most of the time. A lot of other people around. We had safety checks and things like that. Lots of suntan lotion, hat, So what I'm saying is that yesterday I had an evolutionary type experience. And you know what? At the end of the day, I was a different person. I feel I have evolved from that. That is an agrarian, evolutionary sound experience. From that, I can patiently move forward. So consider that today, during this pandemic and quarantine, we have the opportunity, yes, to also find ourselves, find our evolving selves one breath at a time, one natural experience at a time. I encourage you to get out there and carpe diem. Bless you all. Thank you for joining me.